Hi everyone, thank you for tuning in. I'm very excited. It's been a terrific week for the Big Girls on the Move campaign. It was my birthday week and I put out a call on Facebook if people would like to support the campaign, and as a result of that we have fully funded the next box of the Big Girls little colouring book to go to Catherine House, supporting homeless women's service. We're a quarter way to funding the next box, which is for NINCO, Aboriginal Women's Homeless Service. And every single dollar, no matter how large or small, really makes a difference. And I'd also like to say, for people who sent me an inbox and said, I can't afford to donate, but I would love to, your love and compassion and your genuine intention also adds to the campaign. So, you know, the currency is not just money. Supporting the campaign in thought, by sharing, all adds up. So we can see here today that I'm coming from the colour blue. And I'm going to be sharing why I'm wearing these colours and these beads in a moment. And I'm very excited to be sharing in this video number 4 of the Big Girls on the Move campaign, the story of the current project that we'll be launching next week with our project partners, Women's Safety Services, South Australia. We'll be launching a CALD women's colouring book. And for those who aren't familiar with the acronym, it's Culturally and Linguistically Diverse. It's other incarnation for those of us that work in the sector. You know, it used to be NESB, non-English speaking backgrounds, but in keeping with the times of recognising the importance of how we use language, we took the non-English speaking out because I'm non-Arabic speaking, I'm non-Persian speaking, and we've said culturally and linguistically diverse. So it is the CALD for Cold Women program, Community and Life Skills Development. And as I mentioned, I'm going to be sharing a bit about these beads, their relevance to the program. But I'd like to begin with a little bit of a background to the project. Over 18 months and through 3 separate cycles, a group of women from migrant and refugee backgrounds who have experienced domestic violence came together to meet once a week for around about 12 weeks, I think it was in total. We created art, we danced, we shared stories, and we were very fortunate that we had the support of the translation and interpreting community in Adelaide. So our funding enabled us to have the program supported by translators. And one of the most magical things for me as a facilitator was when I was delivering the life coaching information and it was being translated into 7 different languages simultaneously. It sounded like a woman's choir, and it's something I've never experienced working in the domestic violence field in all these many years. It was something unexpected and really quite magical. There's a lyrical, different languages have different tones. Some have the R is rolled differently. The Asian languages are often quite lyrical. It was just truly a women's choir. I'd love to make a little film about that one day. So why a colouring book? Well, this campaign is about the Big Girls Little Colouring Book, and I created this originally based on the work I had been doing in domestic violence services. Sorry if I knocked my microphone then. And that is a coaching specific colouring book. The one we've created with the women in our programs is a relaxation colouring book in 7 different languages. And unlike my published book, which is a sort of landscape format, our new book will be in the calendar format, which is what my first publication of the Big Girls Little Colouring Book was. And for those who have been my friends for a long time or purchased the book 6 years ago when I first created it, will remember that the book then was handwritten. Our new colouring book, which is called Colouring for Peace by the Circle of Women, won't be handwritten, but it will be in that calendar format. It'll be available for women in emergency accommodation in motels, in shelters, and there will also be an audio with coaching information on a website, which is the second part of our development of this project. So I've shared about the musical side of things, the dancing, the women's choir, and through the project we, as the coaching information is being delivered, the participants are using their hands. Some of you might remember from my other video, I quote Carl Jung, sometimes the hands can solve a mystery that the intellect has struggled with in vain. And many of the women who are in the program come from cultures where art and creativity and song and dance is very much a part of the ongoing way of life. It doesn't necessarily stop at sort of junior primary, channeled more towards curriculum development. That's there obviously in the system, but traditional songs, traditional dance, traditional dress are very important. So we drew on that in our colouring group. Before we began the project, my project partner and I created some beads together. So these beads, which is from my Bead Happy program, these beads symbolise the women coming together. So as I rolled them, I thought about my intention for the program, and for the same for the women. So we roll it from grey clay, and you can see by the image on the screen that it starts out as just white clay. It's air drying, we don't need to fire it. And there's information being delivered, so audio, visual, kinesthetic for those who understand the whole systems learning, the importance of that. And as we roll those beads, we talk about thinking about the vision for the future. Coaching isn't counselling. Counselling is its own unique and important discipline and field. But in the coaching process, we're looking at today and moving forward, finding the strengths that we have, the vision that we're holding for the future, and how to maximise potential and then strategise via action, which is really important, how to get to where we want to go. So we sit in a circle, wonderful interpreters sitting there side by side the women, and as short pieces of the life coaching information. It's not lengthy because when you're learning a new craft, and you're also having things interpreted, that's quite a high sensory input. And especially in the early days of leaving domestic violence, there's not a lot of spare room on the hard drive of the mind, so to speak. So everything is very simple, but very effective because it really is short pieces in an environment that is relaxed, that is calm and peaceful. So we can see by the image that was on the screen there that people are just sitting and rolling, as I mentioned in that first one. And then that's the first week. And then in the second week, it takes a few days for the beads to dry, we're painting the beads. And you see these intentional beads that were once just a piece of grey clay. There's an image of a woman in the centre, maybe a bit hard to see. And she symbolises, for me, there's actually two layers to her, our group coming together. And it's beyond, I could not describe what it's like when the women come in with their beads that carry their stories, because these beads have the women's own fingerprint in there. And the beads become really something special as part of their journey of recovery from domestic violence. And it's also a very simple and inexpensive craft that they can pass on to other family members or friends. So the Bead Happy program is part of the CALD project. A couple of videos ago I showed you the warrior woman and how we create her as a mindfulness exercise. We can see in this photo here that the grand finale day is to take the beads outside to seal them, make sure that's all very well dried before it touches the skin. And the beads, I have beads that go back for about 10 years. I'll just show you from my tin here. And so long as they don't get wet, they last for a long time. These beads are very special. My friend, who is a Stolen Generation member, during the national apology 10 years ago, 11 years ago now actually, was re-traumatised by the whole political complexities and fighting that was going on around it. So during that week of the apology, we sat and rolled beads together. The central bead represents her mother, who lost all of her children and they never came back before she passed away. This bead represents my friend and her sisters and the children of the next generation down from the Stolen Generation. And what that does in coaching using creativity is it gives somewhere for the stress and the tension, the sorrow and the grief to be processed. As my friend said, she'd had counselling for many years about what happened to her. People outside of Australia might like to Google the Stolen Generation. I know it's very familiar to First Nations people across the globe. So when my friend, and I'll say a shout out to you, Deanna, because she gave me permission to blog about these as well. When Deanna wears these beads, she can choose whether she tells a story about them or not. And they really are our tribute to her mother and to her sisters and to her. So creative processes really enable the imagination to become involved in the journey of moving forward. The benefit is that obviously there's beautiful things that the women are making, but also it acts as a visual trigger. So when we're creating the Bead Happy beads in the group, the story as the beads are being rolled goes into those beads. And I'm just aware I had that photo up there with my imagery down the bottom. So here's the larger image of those beads. Very beautiful. In the Big Girls Colouring Book, which is part of the campaign, one of the, which is the campaign for the 20 books to be placed in 20 domestic violence services, the second to last page is a mandala about the beads. Beads are a unifying circle across many different cultures. Many of the women in our group will talk about the beads from their home country, and beads are not just clay, they can be stone, shells, all kinds of seeds, all kinds of things. So that's just a little bit of information about our CALD group's creative activity. For those people who don't live in South Australia, you may not be aware that we're on about the 4th day or 5th day of a heat wave. So I'm just feeling myself getting a bit melty at the moment. So if I sort of melt into the table, just we'll put the air conditioner back on later. So in summary, I'd like to just again acknowledge Women's Safety Services for being a project partner. We're really looking forward to the launch on March the 13th. It won't be a public launch because it is held in a safe location. For my friends who work in the South Australian domestic violence sector, please send me an inbox and I can give you the information about how the new colouring books, the Women Colouring for Peace, will be made available. And that just there on the screen is also just another example of how to create a mandala. I meant to put that one in earlier. That's also from the Big Girls Little Colouring Book. So thanks again, everybody who's contributed to my birthday campaign this week. The GoFundMe is open. It is an open-ended campaign. We have currently funded a box for Catherine House, as I said earlier. That's box number 5. So we have 12 more boxes to go. And I would be delighted and truly honoured if you would contribute to our campaign. The information, I think, is in the description of this page. Now, if you have any questions, and I'm just going to have a look to see if there's anything has come up on my page, or any feedback. No, I have see, hello to Lyndall, hello Tam, Rowena and Sharina. Thank you for tuning in. Do leave any questions, any comments, and if you'd like to know more about the Be Happy process, I will be making a downloadable little workshop about that in the coming weeks. Fabulous if you do work in an agency, and also really good if you want to just sit around with your friends and create. And I will be hosting a home circle towards the end of March for those who asked me about it a few weeks ago. So I think that's it from me today. Thanks very much for watching, and call by the GoFundMe campaign, Big Girls on the Move, and I look forward to seeing you next time, which will be on Tuesday at 11 o'clock. Bye.